Hello, I'm the PS3 and welcome back to the video. You might recall that I recently went back to TU11. This was a really fun little thing to do. I made a couple of videos on it and people seem to really enjoy seeing just how different Minecraft console was almost 4 years ago now, back in 2013. However, one of the things that really perplexed me about, this video and the responses to it was the fact that loads of people would say stuff like, oh yeah, I remember how much better the game was back in 2013, how many more updates a year it'd get and how much more 4J seemed to care about it. And it's the sort of thing that I hear and I think, that's kind of interesting. And then I was like, no, that can't be true at all. At least from my, perspective, as someone who's been playing ever since the game first launched on the 360, it seems like 2016 has been the best year of Minecraft console, but rather than just saying that's my opinion and then kind of being done with it, I figured why not get some data collected by someone else and then work out exactly, based on all the information, what has been the best year of Minecraft console. And that's why I got one of my livestream mods, Catalina, to collect go through every single update, work out how many bugs were fixed, how many new features were added, and then we can compare all of this data together and work out what truly was the best year of Minecraft console. And that's what we're doing with today's video. Hopefully you all do enjoy it. If you do like the video, like and let me know because it helps out the channel a lot, and let's know you do like these sorts of videos, again, where we talk a little bit about the history, a little bit about the future, because I think the future's looking bright when you look at the data. Again, I've got this giant spreadsheet right here. I'll kind of break down what all of this means, but let's just start by saying that all of this data does come from the official 4J changelog for Minecraft console, which means that it doesn't include secret features, which there've been a lot more of with recent updates, like TE31 had so many, and I imagine TE46 will have so many, and it doesn't include TE46 yet, but I've just about factored it in there because we know it's coming out before the end of the year, a couple of weeks away now, and we know roughly what's in there, so that means we can work out a few extra things. But yeah, for now, let's just quickly say that this is based on that information. TE46 will be the last update of this year, I'm pretty sure anyway. So with that said, now let's quickly just work out how many updates there were per year, because it's really interesting to me because the amount it's been increasing is very, very fast. So in 2012, there were 6 different updates. It went from TU1 to TU7. TU1 you can argue was its an update, but it was the launch of the game, so let's say it doesn't count. That means there were 6 updates for the game in 2012, even though it was only a partial year. 2013 had just 6 updates again. 2014 had 6 updates one more time, but then in 2015 there were 11 separate updates, and in 2016, again, if we count this next major update, TU46, that means there's going to be 15 updates by the time this year is done, and that is really interesting to me. So just by the update numbers themselves, then it looks like, oh yeah, that's a linear trend going upwards. It was 6 updates a year, and then suddenly this giant spike in 2015 and 2016. However, obviously that doesn't translate directly into, oh, more updates means more better, because as you know, a title update on Minecraft console just means any update that launched, like a bug fix or a regular one. So we then split that down into major updates versus bug fixes, and major updates is one where there's a lot of new features, let's say like 5 minimum or something, and a bug fix is something where the main objective is just to fix bugs. And again, if you go through it that way, then you see that in 2012 there were 3 major updates and 3 bug fixes. In 2013 there were 2 major updates and then 4 separate bug fixes. In 2014, 2 major updates, 4 bug fixes again, and then in 2015, 2 major updates and 9 bug fixes. So the same number of major updates for 3 years in a row. But then in 2016, if you count the Tumble update at least, that means there was going to be 4 major updates and 11 separate bug fixes. So again, you might notice there is a general trend upwards on both of those things, more major updates, but also more bug fixes. However, you might then say that more bug fixes is a bad thing. If bug fixes you're aware of measuring whether the game is good or bad, that means it's a bad thing, but realistically that means nothing. A bug fix just means you download it. You don't even have to do that if you don't want to play online. You just download it, and then some of the bugs which have been added have been fixed. However, you can then look at it the other side and say, well, it means they've put the bugs in the game, which is something I can't really argue with. I think the fact that there's been 11 bug fixes is probably a bit too many. Like, again, if we made it by with 4 bug fixes back in 2013 and 2014, why have there been so many bugs that have been eluding through the updates? Does that mean something's been changed with coding? I can't tell you for sure, so instead let's just analyze the major updates and say that, okay, there's been 2 major updates 3 years in a row, but in 2016 there's been 4, which is, again, double as many and the most for any single year. This means that if we're going by updates alone purely, 2016 has been the most updated year for Minecraft console. I know it doesn't seem that way, especially because they all came out really close together, like, June, then August, then October, and then December, and I know it doesn't seem that way because you might not necessarily care about certain updates. Like, you might be like, well, I really like the minigames, but I don't really care about the bears and igloos and stuff. Or you might be the opposite. You might be like, I have no care for minigames. There's really only been 1 update for me. But as far as just number of updates a year, therefore the amount of development effort that's gone in there, you can say that there's been more updates this year than any other year, and that's a good thing. And again, looking at the trend, it looks like it might just increase. So we might see 4 separate major updates next year, or at least we might see more features. Because I figured then, the argument you can then make to that is like, well, the number of major updates doesn't mean anything because you can split your content between updates, and arguably it counts as more. And that was a pretty interesting argument. So I figured what I'd go through and do is work out how many actual features, so counting new items, blocks, new structures, new mobs, and then anything else that counts as a proper feature, and compare the number from year to year. And this is where things got really interesting for me, because if you do this, then you find that in 2012 there were 150 separate features added to the game. In 2013 there were 122. In 2014 there were 123, and in 2015 163. And this is where maybe again, I can actually vaguely understand where people are coming from, because then you compare that to 2016 so far, and there have been just 63. Obviously, the reason for this is because it doesn't include, the amount that's coming to T46. You can expect that to be anywhere from like 70 to like 120, again, depending on exactly how, the update, how far the update goes and how stuff that goes. But still, it means that there's going to be probably a little bit less features coming out this year than there was in 2015, maybe a little bit more, but it's going to be roughly comparable, still way more than previous years. But this is where I actually vaguely understand that, maybe things actually were better in the past, because again, every single update, I think there has been improvement since 2013, but 2012, if you just look at those pure numbers, 3 major updates and 150 features, but that's in half a year. Again, the game came out in May, and the first, major update was in June. In half a year, they managed to, do 3 major updates and 150 features, and therefore, if we're just looking at objectively what was the best year for Minecraft console, I think it would be 2012, because even though it was a partial year, it had more updates than any year besides the current one. Even though it was a partial year, it's had more updates, more features in there than any year besides last year, and perhaps besides this one. And what's the best year for Minecraft console? The one it launched in, technically. However, I would say that I still don't think that people are right when they say that 2013 was so much better, they cared so much more about the game back then. I still do think this is the time where 4J is at its biggest, and they they're putting the most effort in. It's just I think they're splitting it between a whole bunch more things. You gotta bear in mind there's 6 consoles they're developing now instead of 1 back then. You gotta bear in mind there's all these extra things that they're trying to account for. But as the game goes on and on and on, it seems like the investment Microsoft is putting in Minecraft in the console is only going to go up. With the Xbox One and PS4 becoming the primary consoles, they're going to have more horsepower that they can unlock in the future. And I think that 2012 was the best year objectively looking at numbers. I think 2016 is going to be the second best year, or the best year, depending on how you want to measure it. Again, if you count it as a half year, then it gets kind of messy there. But I think 2016 is going to be one of the better years for Minecraft console. And I think when we look into the future of this, then we can see that depending on how exactly they decide to take the game, we could be seeing a very good year next year. Because if there were 4 major updates and everyone agreed they were good, or 3 of those were major stuff and only 1 was a mini game, or whatever the actual distribution will be, we're gonna have to see how things go, because there's a lot of big features that are planned for 2017 already, such as it's been hinted about add-ons, like we said, 2017. Realms has been hinted a whole bunch of times. There's all these big features, as well as a new mini game they've been hinting for a while now, as well as catching up with the PC. There's all these different things that will be added in 2017. And as far as is this a bleak outlook for the game? I wouldn't say it is. I was surprised by these numbers. I was expecting there to be a lot more down and up and down and up, but it really has been just a general upwards trend, and that means it will probably continue in the future. So yeah, Minecraft console looking pretty promising, at least based on my interpretation of this. I'd love to hear if you have a different opinion on this. You're like, well, if you look at that toy cat, then it clearly shows that this is a bad thing. The fact that they need 11 bug fixes is way more important than this. I'd love to hear your opinions on any of this data in the comments down below, as always, because it's YouTube. You're gonna see a lot of comments just saying like first, or like here's a really bad joke, and apparently it's top of the comments. You can see a lot of that stuff, but I also like seeing the comments that are like, oh yeah, I watched this and I thought this and that toy cat. So I'd love to hear if you have any of those thoughts, because again, it's just interesting to read. Share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here though, because I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. I'm of course very excited for both this last update in 2016. I want to update this just to see if it was the biggest year or not by the end of this. Again, maybe I'll get back to you if it's interesting results. And I'm also excited for 2017. Again, looking at these graphs, maybe you'll be too. But remember, the best place to learn about all that stuff is probably right here at youtube.com/toycat. So yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.